Tomino's Hell, the cursed poem not meant to be read out loud. Written by Martina Booths, edited for YouTube, and narrated by Dean Delp. As a kid, I was always the eccentric one, the creative, introverted child with an uncanny obsession for horror. To me, horror meant, and still as an adult is, a somewhat unpleasant excitement of emotion. That is to say, whatever would be considered too scary to handle for someone else, whether that's being in the pitch black dark, summoning an evil spirit like Bloody Mary in the mirror, or talking to dead people through a vintage, badly curved Ouija board, I am the first to explore it. A few weeks ago, I was lucky enough to stumble across a Japanese poem called Tomino's Hell, released in 1919 and recorded in the poetry collection Sakin. Rumor has it that if you read the poem out loud, you will either die or your soul will suffer eternally in hell. If you are wondering who was behind the creation of such a dark, witty, and eerie urban legend, his name was Saijo Yaso. If you are not familiar, Saijo was a known Japanese poet who worked on children's nursery rhymes and popular song lyrics. I wanted to do further research on the artist himself, but there's not much about him printed in English. I did come upon a possible inspiration behind the poem and the age when he created it. It is said that Tomino's Hell was created when Saijo was 27 years old, and the inspiration came after experiencing the great loss of either his father or sister, but nothing more than this. Apparently, there have been multiple reported incidents regarding the poem, and one was the death of director Shuji Terayama. It was no secret that Shuji so highly admired Tomino's Hell that he created a film inspired by it, the movie Denen ni Shisu, or in English, Pastoral, To Die in the Country, also known as Pastoral Hide and Seek. The movie was released in 1974, and Terayama died a few years later at the age of 47 from cirrhosis of the liver. While this is a very natural cause of death, many believe that it was the poem that killed him. In another case, a female college student died a week after reading the poem out loud while participating in a daring prank. Other cases have included illnesses, car wrecks, and the feeling of an evil presence lingering around. As I was reading through the poem, my thoughts were that the composition style of the story was pretty indecipherable, but quite fascinating. The poem was originally written in Japanese, which makes the English translation sometimes difficult to understand. One thing that I did notice repeatedly throughout the entire poem is it only mentions his two sisters, nothing pointing towards Saijo's father. So there could be a possibility that the inspiration behind the poem is referring to his sister, but it is still unclear whether it is regarding the elder or the younger one. It's also possible that Tomino's Hell could be about Saijo's secret childhood that is unknown to the public, or at least to English readers. While some may interpret the poem to be a metaphor for war, I view it another way personally, but the true meaning behind the story is a mystery. Before I get into my own interpretation along with my thoughts on the story, take a look if you dare, we've seen fit to include the poem here, but just in case we've had an AI voice read it. Remember, don't read it out loud yourself.
The elder sister vomits blood, younger sister has breathing fire, while sweet little Tomino just spits up the jewels. All alone does Tomino go falling into that hell, a hell of utter darkness, without even flowers. Is Tomino as big sister the one who whips him? The purpose of the scourging hangs dark in his mind, lashing and thrashing him, but never quite shattering. One sure path to Hevesi, the eternal hell. Into that blackest of hells guide him now. I pray to the golden sheep, to the nightingale. How much did he put in that leather pouch to prepare for his trek to the eternal hell? Spring is coming to the valley, to the wood, to the spiraling chasms of the blackest hell. The nightingale in her cage, the sheep aboard the wagon, and tears well up in the eyes of sweet little Tomino. Sing, O nightingale, in the vast, misty forest he screams he only misses his little sister. His wailing desperation echoes throughout hell. A fox peony opens its golden petals. Down past the 7 mountains and 7 rivers of hell, the solitary journey of sweet little Tomino. If in this hell they are found, may they then come to me, please, those sharp spikes of punishment from Needle Mountain. Not just on some empty women splash pierced with blood-red pins, they serve as hellish signposts for sweet little Tomino.
As complicated as the poem may seem, my way of coming up with an interpretation is that I tried to analyze the story metaphorically. My interpretation might not be exactly what the story is about, but that's just my interpretation. At the beginning of the story, it was obvious to me who was all involved, but no names were attached other than Tomino. Figuratively speaking, what it means to vomit blood might be to be frustrated and stressed about a particular situation. To breathe fire, or what I've imagined it to be, is perhaps a person who is holding things back, keeping things unspoken. While Tomino spits up the jewels, I'd say he's perhaps keeping a secret about something or someone, and something very important. After breaking down the beginning of the story, I believe that his elder sister was frustrated about a particular situation pertaining to her younger brother Tomino, while her younger sister, on the other hand, could possibly be the family member who is involved or is aware of Tomino's secret. Tomino himself is feeling all alone in this situation. He can't speak of it to anyone because he's fearful that while having these sinful thoughts about someone in the family, his punishment would be that his soul will suffer in hell, where he'd never get to see light and the flowers that he mentions bloom again. This leads me to suspect that Tomino is fearing these sinful thoughts about his elder sister. Is Tomino's big sister the one who whips him? That's where I begin to question it. Could his elder sister be abusive towards him, or maybe even the younger sister too? It seems that Tomino is reliving a moment where his elder sister became angry at him, or possibly towards both his sister and himself. The word shattering means very shocking or upset, but while it mentioned never quite shattering, I feel that the situation with his elder sister wasn't a surprising one, that maybe it had been a constant situation between the two of them. In Buddhism, Avicii means the lowest level of the Naraka, or hell realm. So it tells me that Tomino could have entered into a deep, dark depression, praying that he heals the pain that lies in his mind. I think the poem is a metaphor for his painful thoughts. Tomino travels through different dimensions of hell in the misty forest as the sheep carry the wagon. The caged nightingale sings along the way while he nervously waits upon his arrival. He screams in desperation, sounds of wailing and echoes through the forest for his younger sister. When he arrives at the golden petal, which might be referring to the gates or entrance or maybe center of hell, Tomino sees a spirit animal, or what I might call spirit guide, who takes him to the light at the end of the tunnel, which could be seen as the end of a difficult situation. Yet he goes further, deep through the mountains, perhaps representing depression, and into the darkness of hell alone. But then the ending of the poem brings in a confusion all its own, which led me to put the whole story together in a possible outcome. One possible conclusion is that this poem is like stepping into the mind of a person who is paranoid and delusional. It could be referring to this young boy, Tomino, who is experiencing some kind of mental illness like schizophrenia. There are many different definitions or interpretations that I think could complement the story very well. What does seem to be obvious regardless of interpretation, though, is that the love and bond he shares with his younger sister is stronger than the bond with the eldest, which brought to my attention that maybe he didn't have a great relationship with her at all. I did sense that there was some kind of abandonment, and without the story mentioning anything about Tomino's parents or anyone else besides the two sisters, I feel that the elder sister was in charge of watching over Tomino and the younger sister. Throughout the poem, it speaks of punishment, and his elder sister could also have been abusive to both of them, and because of that, the anger that Tomino felt against her was unbearable. He feared that if he had sinful thoughts and feelings against his elder sister, that his soul might burn in hell. Either way, the logic behind the story is still ultimately unknown, and you can discover many more interpretations for yourself, countless of which are floating around the internet. And while this is just my interpretation, I'd love to hear yours. And I think it's one of the things that makes this poem so great is the many different ways you could take it. So when I see lots of arguments or discussions around the internet swarming with meanings of Tomino's hell, regardless of what I personally think, I agree with them.